What is going on, comic fans? Welcome to the channel. I'm Mark. This is Legion of Comics, and today I'm here with a video that I feel like I just needed to make because it's a conversation that I've seen had numerous times, most recently on Instagram, as a result of the movie Deadpool and Wolverine being such a huge hit. Who gets credited as being something that I'm seeing tossed around very often now, and it's been tossed around for a long time, especially with characters like Rob Liefeld, but more now than ever, and something even bigger happened in the wake of all of it. Let's get into it. Be sure to check the description below to find links to fantastic resources like online retailer Big Time Collectibles, comic book cleaning and pressing services, as well as submission services with JustinComicx and my local comic shop, ABX Comics and Games, where you can set up a local or long distance pull list and keep up with tabletop gaming and all kinds of cool stuff. Be sure to check them out down below. So, most people at this point have seen Deadpool and Wolverine. It's still rocking and rolling at the box office, raking in tens of millions of dollars every week, still breaking all kinds of records, the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time, if I'm not mistaken, and it deserves every bit of it. It was absolutely fantastic, and it started this conversation and a dialogue, as it should, of all sorts on well, for me it's Instagram, but I'm sure all over the place. And one of the most recent posts that I've seen was of people talking about crediting comic writer Joe Kelly. Joe Kelly and Ed McGuinness had a legendary run on Deadpool that kind of defined the character in the sense that we know him today. Most famously, Rob Liefeld is known for creating Deadpool. And I say creating, and I mean creating, but a lot of people will say co-creating Deadpool with Fabian, and I am going to butcher his last name because it's what I do, but Nysinza, however you say his name. But Rob Liefeld and Fabian worked on Deadpool originally in the New Mutants run. Rob still holds it to this day that it is his character. It was his idea. He handed the scripts over, and Fabian plotted them out and all that stuff, and Rob drew it. But that isn't how things end up all the time. So Fabian is co-creator by name of Deadpool. Now, when I looked online before putting this video together, I saw numerous places, including Wikipedia, that lists Fabian's name first as creator for Deadpool. And that could be for countless different reasons. But if I was Rob Liefeld, I would be livid seeing my character, even if co-created with somebody else, if I came up with that character, someone else's name listed first. But the fact that Joe Kelly is now being added, like people calling and demanding for Joe Kelly to be listed as co-creator because he had a definitive run on the character, I thought that was absolutely bonkers. There's a difference between working on a character and creating a character. It's kind of like the whole first appearance argument in comics. You know, there can only be one first appearance, and you can split hairs and define different appearances differently after that, but there's ultimately only one person kind of thing. So this is where the things get a little bit more interesting. When the credits roll for Deadpool and Wolverine, you see a new name included as a co-creator for the very first time, and that was at the time of the creation of Wolverine, editor Roy Thomas, who worked on Hulk 181 as the overseeing editor of that book. So Wolverine has long time been credited to Len Wein and Herb Trimpe for creating him, with acknowledgement to John Romita Jr. Sr. for helping John Romita Jr. Sr. for helping design the suit. But now Roy Thomas, like 50 years after the fact, is being added as a co-creator. And that sparked a lot of controversy. And we're going to get into a little bit of that here. I found the Forbes article that touches on some of this and where it all came to be. But longtime comic book editor Bobby Chase first reported on it and said that her and her dear friend, my friend and Len Wein's widow, because Len Wein at this point is passed away, Christina Villada, got a call from Marvel executive David Bogart informing her in the upcoming Wolverine and Deadpool movie, Roy Thomas will now be credited as co-creator with Len Wein and John Romita Sr. And David said it's a done deal. I was standing in Christine's kitchen this past Sunday as she told me about the phone call. Of course, Christine is seriously concerned about Len's legacy. Len was profoundly important to the comic book industry, and that legacy is being changed for worse 6 years after his death. So they got the phone call of just informing them after the fact that now the editor at the time will be included as co-creator. Now, for those that might not know, every single comic book that comes out of Marvel and for DC, every single comic book has an editor above it. So that started the controversy, the conversation. Does every single comic book have to give credit for creation to the editor at that time? every single one of them, every new character, every new invention or anything that happens in that book, is the editor able to get credit for it? So it gets a little murky here. And of course, people reached out to Roy Thomas. We have his response to everything was, the situation is unfortunate because I'm only trying to finally get credit for something where the facts have been known for many years. Now I'm being portrayed as a ghoul trying to rob the corpse of Len Wein for credit and money, he said. I want to point out, it says credit and money, not just money, credit and money. First and foremost, he says, this is not a financial issue. I'm not getting a penny as far as I know, and it in no way takes away from whatever Lynn and John's families may be getting. If anything, I don't know what their financial arrangement is with Marvel. I'm already getting money from my other contributions to Marvel. I don't need Wolverine money. Thank you very much. So he gets a little sassy there, gets a little sassy about it, rightfully so. I wouldn't blame him. I'd be a little defensive as well, but he's claiming he's not receiving a penny despite getting credited as co-creator, which would be interesting if that's the case. I mean, everyone has their own kind of dealings that they work out, own kind of, like you said, financial arrangements. I think the most famous one in comic book history, in my opinion, would be the financial arrangement with DC Comics, Warner Brothers, and the Schuster and Siegel families. But that's a good example. And then in the next thing here, let's see if we get it to come up. I don't think I'm going to get that one to come up for some reason. Here we go. Thomas acknowledged that offering suggestions to creative teams was part of his job as editor-in-chief, but said the situation with Wolverine was extraordinary. I wasn't usually involved in the creation of characters as editor, he said. If I made up a character, it was usually for a comic I was writing. In this case, I did make up my character, and whether it was my job or not, it doesn't mean I wasn't co-creator. To suggest otherwise is a bunch of crap. So what he's stating is that he actually gave the parameters to Len Wein. He said, we have an international audience. I would like you to create a Canadian character, and here are 4 parameters that you have to create it based on. I want him to be short, since most characters are tall, and I want him to be from Canada to help with the international audience. And here's the breakdown of it. The aspect of the situation is ruffling feathers in the comic community, and is the idea of staff editor taking a piece of credit for the work of freelance creative teams. This is not the usual practice in the industry, despite many historical examples of editors ranging from DC's Julia Schwartz to Vertigo's Karen Berger having a significant and acknowledged role in bringing concepts to life. So despite any of that, it's still not the norm. There's a couple of examples. There's a couple of outliers, and Roy Thomas is now one of those. And it's not like he's claiming credit for anything else, or not necessarily claiming credit, but wanting creator acknowledgement for anything else. It's just this one character, which is like easily a top 5 flagship characters for Marvel, especially because of the success of the films over the last 20 years. But lastly, he added, Thomas also said he would not dream of taking credit for other characters. So that answered that question that debuted when he was in charge, as he did not have a personal hand in shaping them. So he feels he has a personal hand in shaping Wolverine versus just giving 4 brief marching orders to create off of. He also volunteered that one of the characters he is credited with co-creating, Marvel's The Vision from its 1960s run on the Avengers, was done under similar circumstances, instigated by then Marvel editor-in-chief Stan Lee. His quote says, "They gave me and artist John Buscema the credit, and that makes sense. But if Stan wanted the credit, I could have gladly shared it with him, as well as with Jack Kirby, who created the 1940s character on whom Thomas's vision is partly based." So that's where it gets weird. So he tries to bring up this example where he's now in the actual creator seat, and the editor kind of gave him some instructions to bring a character to life, but the editor, Stanley, did not take credit for it. And he's saying because this character has like this deep convoluted history into the golden age, that Stan and Jack are well deserving of that credit. He didn't say because he was the editor. He said because we stood on the backs of a previous character. But at the same time, that's a terrible example. Like, their vision is not like saying we just brought him into the Silver Age. That's like saying the Carter Slade Ghost Rider and the Danny Ketch Ghost Rider, and saying they're not. Those are different Ghost Riders. And you're even removed more, like use Johnny Blaze. It's still completely different. The Ghost Rider by name and some similarities, but it's still massively different. There's still different creators involved in that kind of thing. You can pay respect to, acknowledge it, but that doesn't mean they are owed the creator stuff for it necessarily. But it's such a weird situation here. He claims he's not wanting money. He claims he just wants recognition. He says that people have heard him tell this story for years. He has no receipts to that. He says everyone's dead at this point. But plenty of people that know him knows he's just a straightforward guy, and he's been talking about this. It's just such a weird place. If you, all these people that have touched these properties want all this credit. I don't understand where we draw the line. Creators deserve credit. I mean, take Superman, the most iconic, recognizable superhero of all time. Some of the biggest attributes. Tell me something that Superman does. He flies. Cool. That didn't start in the comics. That started in the cartoon in the 1940s. They wanted him to look cooler, leaping and jumping and flying and stuff. So that's added in there. What's his biggest weakness? Kryptonite. Cool. That didn't start in the comics either. That started in the radio broadcast show that was introduced in there. And then it was like 5-6 years later before it came into the comics. So at what point do people just building onto this character, do they deserve creators credit for it? In my opinion, they don't. That's a weird line to start crossing, and it's super blurry, and it can just lead to weird places. But leave a comment. Where do you weigh in on this? Like, who deserves credit for creating the characters, and who just is just part of their journey from there? These characters have existed, some of them for closing in on 100 years at this point. Everyone's adding something to them along the way. And it's just really cool that we even get the opportunity to really have these conversations, that we have these characters that last for this long. But no ill will toward any of these people. If you created something, I guess you deserve credit for it. Just where do y'all draw the line? Leave me a comment down below if you like the video. Like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to hit that join button. It helps channel out. And until next time, as always, I'm Mark, but we are Legion.